it's almost unfair, or it doesn't give enough credit when you refer to a guy like Brad Stevens as a setup guy for this reason to me, because he did more than lay the foundation just with obviously the so much of the roster having played for him, and is stylistically, like, very rarely do you see obviously a guy go, I don't know how many times this happened in the last, say, 30 years. I'm sure in the earlier days in the NBA, it was, maybe more common, but how often a guy goes from directly to from head coach to the top decision maker, president of basketball operations, within the same organization year to year, to where he can, and I don't want to suggest not enough, I don't want to take any credit away from Danny Ainge. I think Danny Ainge is perennially underrated, quite frankly, in the way that he rebuilt this organization multiple times. I think his drafting doesn't get nearly enough credit, but because, maybe where we are, or look at the scoreboard, if you will, people sort of cling to, well, how many championships did he win is almost, in 15 to 20 years in Boston. It's the one. And so people say he didn't necessarily do enough. And, I look at it and I say, all right, Danny obviously put together the majority of the existing roster. He drafted their key guys, whether it's, Brown and Tatum and Smart and Williams. And obviously you could look at other members of the rotation, Grant Williams and Pritchard. And, he previously had acquired or signed, Tice and Horford, who Brad then reacquired, having, coached them and developed obviously an appreciation for them. But, Brad then took it to another level. Brad, it was always so clear, Brad's imprint, from day one, from, going back to Butler, his legacy as a head coach, however good or bad it was going to be very defense dependent. And so, his decisions, obviously, so far as Pobo, and I think he's done, a far better job than I expected him to. I think he's done an excellent job. Not that I ever thought he'd do poorly, but he's done really, really well. Like, I don't think you can even point to a trade that he has lost to this point, even at worst, if you will. And, for him to, again, just put his imprint, further from head coach to now in this role. I'm going to hire a defensive minded head coach who's maybe a little bit tougher, mentally or audibly, or just in demeanor or whatever than he was, and coach these guys just differently. They needed obviously a change of pace. Maybe they needed a guy who played the game at the highest level like Udoka. Maybe they needed a guy who came from the Popovich tree. Call it what you want, obviously, but a defensive minded guy, and then goes out and obviously reacquires Horford, reacquires Tice, brings in Derek White. Congrats to him, by the way, on the birth of his new son, Hendricks. He has shaped all of this, to a place where then Ime can obviously take the baton and take it to where it's gotten. I just think it's been such a collaborative effort. I know I'm rambling. It's been such a collaborative effort to what they've been able to do. It's a large part of, I think, we always talk blame pies. It's like credit pie, is another thing that we never do. And there's so much of it that can be sprinkled around.
Truly. And just think about how much humility Brad has had to show. I mean, this has been he's been a prodigy as a coach everywhere he's been. First at Butler, and in his early years at the Celtics, people would ask, is he the best coach in the NBA? I always felt like you have to prove that in the playoffs, but he looked like a guy that could be the best coach in the NBA someday. And but for him to become the president of the team, having been the former coach, and then to go and hire a coach that essentially fills out Brad's own weaknesses. So for him to hire Ime means that he was saying to himself, I lacked in this, but this guy can fill it. I wasn't able to do this, but this guy can do what I didn't do. And some guys, it's almost like when you see retired players complaining about the modern generation of players, and they say, oh, it isn't as good as when I played, or when I played, we were tougher, or whatever. Brad easily, someone in Brad's position easily could have gone in and tried to fight his old battles and say, no, you're going to do it the way I tried to do it. And, I was right when I was coaching. They weren't listening, and I want you to do what no, he he put them on a different track. But by doing that, he's implicitly admitting to his own weaknesses. And that is a team-minded person. That's what he asks of all his players to do, right? He asks them to confront their own weaknesses and get better at them. Well, that's exactly what he did with this hire. And then taking what he knew as a coach and trying to give the resources to the new coach so the new coach could do better than he had done in the past, which again isn't going to make him look better. It isn't going to make Brad look better. People are going to be saying, boy, this guy's a lot better than the last coach we had. He knows that, but he wants that to happen. He wants it to happen. So, I just think in this modern world, big money, big fame, big egos, this guy really has been the same thing all along. It's never been about him. It's always been about the group, about helping players get better. In this case, it's helping new coaching staff do the best they can. And I just think it says a lot of him that he was willing to make a priority the thing that he's always preached.
Do you think, and I mean, we're well off course. We haven't even talked about this series yet, but, I was planning on saving some of the big picture stuff at the end, but I find it really interesting. Do you think, like Brad has certainly in various radio, TV interviews over the course of the year, sort of hinted at or flat out said aspects of coaching he absolutely doesn't miss. The fact, like, pining over game film late at night, not obviously when you're looking to scout a guy, but, game to game, preparing for matchups and like sleepless nights because of a loss or, whatever it may be, or, who's going to start tonight? Is this guy going to be prepared to come back from injury and help you out for tomorrow's game? He's been asked questions along those lines so many times, and oftentimes will laugh and say, I'm so happy that's not my problem anymore. When you couple the Celtics, at least success to this point, we'll see if it goes all the way, obviously, with just the job that he has done to this point in further elevating them from where they were when he was head coach. It seems like, I haven't talked to him about it, but it seems like he's really, really enjoying this new path, this aspect of his career that, I'm not sure he ever foresaw. I'd have to imagine, at least in his early days with the Celtics, and certainly before that, like I want to be Pop, or I want to be Pat Riley, or I want to be, Phil Jackson, like all this perfect world. Like I want to coach forever and I want to win a bunch of championships, or like, oh, we'll see how this goes, even when he got the job, but I want to get back to coaching. How do you think he feels about it right now? Like, do you think this is a role that he wants to hold for a long time?
Oh, I wouldn't know about that. But I do know if he's not enjoying it now, he will never enjoy it, because it's never going to be better than what he has right now. I mean, it's all downhill from here.
Well, short of winning a championship anyway.
Yeah, but it'll never go as well as this. This is every move he's made has worked out, and the coach is working out great. And it's an underdog story, to quote Bill Murray.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, this is just, again, it's all perfect right now. Adam, when you look at the roster individually of the players that they have,
mm-hmm.
and when people were criticizing Danny Ainge, it was for some of the draft picks he made. Who are some of these players? Some of these guys before the last few months were being criticized for not they shouldn't have been picked. There is definitely a sum of the parts thing going on with this team, where if you took some of these guys and put them on other NBA teams, Al Horford's a perfect example, went to
mm-hmm.
Philly and disappeared, and Oklahoma City said, well, you're good. We might win too many games with you, but nobody's talking about Al Horford as like
what a favor that's been, by the way.
Yeah. Or Grant, or a lot of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So you put them on other teams, and you'd say, wow, why did we want this guy so badly? He's not doing for us what he did for Boston. but it works right now with this team because everybody's doing what they're supposed to do at the highest level. And it's just working out great for them. But it's so as good of a job as Brad has done with some of the trades and how it's all what you were talking about earlier. It's all of it coming together and fitting together and creating balance to the picture. The way artists talk about, you have to have balance in a painting, and have the sun in the upper corner and something darkness down here and all that kind of stuff. They've got that going on with this team, and it just makes everybody look better than they would be in other situations. It makes Brad look better. It makes Udoka look better. Al Horford has never looked better. Grant Williams, people are calling him Steph Curry. That never would have been imaginable before. And Jason Tatum is a playmaker, and something no one was talking about. So everybody right now looks good. And there have been a few teams over the years. I'm so old. I go back to the Portland Trailblazers with Bill Walton. A bunch of guys that couldn't play in the NBA today, surrounded by this one great player, Maurice Lucas. And it was an amazing formula. And the Spurs, the way they look great. And so I don't know, everybody looks better than they would be in other situations right now.